Meet the Swear this morning, we've been discussing Labor's ongoing leadership quarrel. As Parliament sits for the last time before the election, there is pressure on both sides to put this issue to bed. And despite the assertions from Gillard supporters that her leadership is safe, such as what we heard from Stephen Smith this morning, many still believe Kevin Rudd presents the only real chance for the party to avoid electoral annihilation. Joining us now is Bruce Hawker, a long-time Labor strategist and Kevin Rudd supporter. Good morning to you, Bruce. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Kat.
Will Kevin Rudd put his hand up this week?
Well, he's maintained since February 2012 that he won't be challenging for the leadership, and I don't think he said anything that suggests otherwise.
OK, so we all know what you would like to happen, considering you're a supporter of Kevin Rudd's and you're quite public about that. But could I ask you, when will it happen and how will it happen?
Well, as I said, I don't think he's going to challenge. But obviously there's real anxiety in the ranks. Anyone who tries to tell you otherwise is just having you on. And you know, the normal thing in situations like this is that party elders will go to the leader, as we saw with Paul Keating going to Bob Hawke and say, look, it's time for a change. But as you saw in the interview with Stephen Smith, we're still not seeing any great signs of that happening. A lot of talk, a lot of noise on the side, but no real indications. But
as you remember, back in those days too, there was a lot of talk before those two challenges, Hawke and Keating, and people were claiming to be in denial of such things, and then it just happens by osmosis very quickly. Do you believe something will happen this week? Do you believe that there will be a change of leadership this week?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'd like to tell you that I had the answer, and I don't think anybody out there does know what's happening. And this is unique, I think, in the history of the Labor Party, certainly at a federal level. Normally you have a consensus build around an outcome, and we haven't seen that for various reasons, notwithstanding the fact that Kevin Rudd is clearly the most popular political leader in the country.
Could I ask about Kevin, though? If indeed there was a transition back to Kevin Rudd, what could he possibly do to heal the Labor Party?
Well, my view is that he has to, if he were ever to be leader again, say the sorts of things that happened in the past must not happen. We need a party that's united behind a leader. People need to know that they elect a leader, that they're not going to be removed in the dead of night. But also, you need somebody who can communicate a message clearly to the Australian electorate about the alternatives. And I think he's done that very effectively. He goes out and works electorates all the time. He's probably done about 30 in the last year, just working with backbenchers, and he always gets a very good response. People like him. He's a very good communicator of a strong Labor message.
Bruce, you talked about what's normal and what happens in terms of precedent. One of the things that normally would be happening by this stage of a campaign is that there'd be quite intense scrutiny by both sides of each other's policies. Is there, and as a consequence of the brawling in Labor, going to be that Tony Abbott becomes elected with the Australian public knowing very little about what he really stands for?
That's one of the great worries, I think, with the squabbling continuing to go on, that, a person like Tony Abbott is really, there to be challenged. A lot of the premises that he works on just need to be taken, and dissected. Kevin Rudd did that very effectively when he said, well, look, you talk about turning back the boats, but how are you going to do that in the face of strong opposition from the Indonesians? You talk about a poor economy, but we've got low unemployment, low debt, the economy's going well. Australian families on $300,000 mortgages are paying $100 a week less than under John Howard in their mortgages, and yet we're not getting those messages across. So you're right, Brendan, we should be talking much more about these issues.
You mentioned Tony Abbott and some of the policies. Of course, the last time the coalition had control of both houses, we got work choices. There was a great risk, and I don't think a lot of people have picked up on this, that if the polls are correct and Labor is heading to where it looks like it is, it will lose the Senate, it will lose any influence it has on the Senate. What is the risk for the Labor Party and the trade union movement, for that matter, if that should occur?
Yeah, I saw your piece last week and I thought it was on the money. This is a very real danger for Labor if we lose control of the Senate as well as the House of Representatives, because at that point the government really has carte blanche to do whatever it likes in areas like industrial relations. And we don't know what Tony Abbott would do because, as you've said, Brendan, there hasn't been enough focus on what he would do. There'll be be probably a royal commission into the union movement or into particular unions. I think that's a sort of course that people would take, would force on Tony Abbott, even if he wasn't particularly interested in going down that path. When that brake gets taken off, the leader is left without an excuse to say, oh, I'd like to go down that path, but I can't because I can't get it through the Senate. If they control both houses, then you do see the sorts of things happening like in 2004, where despite probably John Howard's best thinking on the issue, they went down the path of work choices and all the problems that that created in the Australian electorate.
Well, Bruce, a very big week ahead indeed. Thank you, as always, for your insight. Always good to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.